Good morning, Year 10, and welcome to the working week. So this is the activities for the week beginning May the 11th, 2020. So first of all, what's our retrieval task from the previous week? So there's a retrieval quiz on Ozymandias for you to work on today. And I've just got some notes from the paper 1, questions 1, 2, and 3 work that you did. I've sent everyone individual feedback. These were a very strong sense of essays, really impressive work. Some general things, some general misconceptions. The best way to answer question 3 is to analyse the extract starting at the first line and then moving through until the end of the extract. I think we need to try and move away from that because otherwise you can end up just retelling the story, and therefore in this second bullet point it therefore ends up that you identify the moments where a text shifts its focus. But remember, that's not quite the same as exploring how a writer uses structure to engage a reader. They're connected, of course, but identifying those moments isn't actually then saying how the writer uses the structure, you're just picking up what they've done. So there needs to be some movement towards that. And then finally in question 2, there needs to be a bit more focus on how you explore and work with the individual words. So the question is all about language, so that's got to be the really rigorous focus. So the new work this week, alongside the retrieval quiz, there's an examination question on Ozymandias, so exam style question, and I want you to do some work around identifying and applying poetic terms. And again, that work should take between an hour and a half and 2 hours. So I've put a maximum of sort of 3 hours on Go for Schools, and the instructions are on Go for Schools along with this video, and the work has been set in assignments. So looking back at last week, here are the people who I've picked out for particular qualities, and I've put R2s on Go for Schools for them alongside praise in teams. There's some really wonderful things here in terms of structure. If we look at the kind of vocabulary people are using, decipher, amplifying, this lovely phrase from Ben, the idea within the Goldfinch of how Donat introducing a secondary reality within the main idea of the text. Kezia's discussion of the reader being pulled between different spaces in the museum without much context. Amelia had superb insights into individual word choices and used the word weave in her own writing when writing about structure. Everyone here, I think their writing was particularly good, but as we look at across the board with the class qualities, there's a high level of engagement with the quizzes and using assignments, so this is working really well now. We're moving away when we're analysing a response from saying the writer uses language. I really liked the shared annotations that people took photographs of or did on a Word document. That looked excellent and was really helpful. We got 100% for question 1. Now I know it's the 4-mark introductory question, but it's all marks, it's all credit, isn't it? So that's really positive that we're doing that. People showed an increasing understanding of how to talk about punctuality. There was lots of good writing about semicolons, which I was surprised by, but also really impressed by. The quality of writing, as I commented on with Ben, Amelia, and Kezia's phrasing, and Harvey's, is really fluent. Your writing is taking on great quality. You're obviously taking time to craft and develop your responses really well. And I think finally there's a much improved sense of how much you need to write for language paper 1, questions 2 and 3, because they're 8-mark responses, so you need substance, but you don't need enormous amounts of writing. And they should be around the same amount. There was still a bit of a tendency for people to write more for question 3 than question 2, but remember they are worth the same. Just because one is dealing with the whole extract and the other is dealing with a smaller part of that extract, it doesn't mean that you should be writing more for question 3. They should be around the same. Okay, so the retrieval quiz you've got this week should look like this. There's 5 questions. It's worth 6 marks because the last question is quite difficult. It's all multiple choice, and you'll get a bit of extra information when you click on the correct answers. Following on from the work you did studying Ozymandias last week, I want you to complete an exam style question. This is what it will look like in the exam. So you'll get a topic. So it won't always be as specific as power, but it will always be power or conflict related. And here it's quite a generic question about power and one other poem from Power and Conflict. So remember the structure. They will always give you one poem. You need to pick another from your knowledge of the anthology. This was the question in June 2018. It's quite a broad question, the idea of power, so it gives you a lot of options you can talk about. For example, the fact that the statue has been sort of eroded away from time and stands doesn't mean you could compare it with one of the poems to do with nature. It doesn't just have to be one of the more obviously, militaristic or dictatorial style poems. I've included for you here some information from the examiner's report that you can just take some time to look at. Here are some examples of the kind of poems people chose in the exam, the notion of power they talked about, and so you can see some of the things that students did. The comparison of nothingness was an interesting connection to Storm on the Island, the fact that power leads to nothing in the end. So again, just read over that, that should be helpful. And just a little bit of guidance about how to write. Now, this gives you an idea in terms of developing some writing of the poem. And in terms of comparison, what I want to do is mark your responses and then next week give some further feedback about how to compare effectively, because there isn't a one size that fits all model. The exam board gives you flexibility in how you want to compare. So what I want to do with that is look at your responses, give some whole class feedback on how you've used comparison. These points here are about kind of good practice in analysing a poem, going through it. Always remember to talk about the title, because the title is part of the poem and often the most significant part, a part that really does give it meaning. And then the final activity this week is there's a series of poetic terms you have here, and what I want you to do is we've got these definitions here and I want you to find the correct term for each definition and then to provide an example from a poem, ideally from the poetry anthology, but they can come from elsewhere, of these particular poems. It's the sort of thing where a fairly simple Google search will give you the answers, but I think it would be better to look through the anthology in terms of developing your work to actually pick these things out. So looking at then the rest of the work and where it's at, so the work is on posts, so I've given praise to people recently. Here are the retrieval quiz for Ozymandias, the Ozymandias examination style question, and the poetic terms, and then praise for the most recent pieces of work. The information is also on Go for Schools under here, so you should have everything you need to get through this. It'd be very helpful to do some catch-up work, so I'm going to make myself available for some tutorials or brief whole class sessions this week where we can speak to each other about the work and just check in on how everything's going. But I was really impressed by the quality of work that was submitted last week. It really is excellent, and it's good to see that you're getting a greater facility with how you're using the notebook and Teams, and lots of the work from Ozymandias is now in the right place in the class notebook. So good luck with this week's work. Please contact me via the post section on Teams if you need any particular support, and I'll do my best to address any concerns or questions you might have. But again, well done on the work you're doing so far. It's really impressive. Take care, everyone, and speak to you soon. Bye.